Trump's tactics are going to have to change so that, like in Gaza, Trump put a lot of pressure on Netanyahu, a lot of pressure. And I think he's going to have to use that playbook with Putin. He's going to have to really make it hurt.
Well, we have our eyes trained on that door to the White House where any minute Volodymyr Zelensky will sweep up and we will get an inkling of how that meeting's going to go, perhaps. So we will bring you all of that live. So stay tuned here on Times Radio Drive. To analyse what we might be expecting from that, what might come out of it and what impact it will have on the shape of the war. Let's hear now from Jim Townsend, former Assistant Secretary of Defence for NATO, who's on the line. Good evening to you.
Good evening to you too.
So far on the programme, virtually all of the speakers we've had have been pretty downbeat about what might come out of this meeting for Volodymyr Zelensky. What is your thought?
Well, I think it's a downbeat review because I think the going in position was much more upbeat in the sense that the expectation was that at this meeting, the president would agree to sending via NATO and the NATO allies Tomahawk cruise missiles to Zelensky, and we would see a lot of long-range strikes. So that's not going to happen, I believe, because we've got this Hungary summit in the wings, and so the meeting might emerge in a bit of a deflated way because of the expectations being so high a few days ago. So we'll see what comes out, but it won't be Tomahawks.
Right. OK. Well, and doesn't that mean then that there's a saying, isn't there, that taco, Trump always chickens out, that Donald Trump has issued all of these ultimatums to Putin, and each time Putin sort of pulls something out of the bag that prevents him from going ahead with his threat. And so it is with the Tomahawks, isn't it?
Well, we'll have to see about Budapest. It could be that Budapest doesn't go well at all. And Trump comes out of that meeting upset, feeling like he's been embarrassed and tapped along, as he says, by Putin. And he turns around and hands to Zelensky a lot of Tomahawks. But I think what's going to come out of this meeting is a pause in that scenario. That's what Putin has gained from the telephone call, and that's going to be a frustration for Zelensky. But we'll have to see what happens in Budapest to get the final decision.
But how many times does he have to be sort of tapped along by Putin, as you put it and as he put it, before he learns that he's being played by this guy?
Well, I think he knows that. I think he knows that, but I think his negotiating strategy is carrots and sticks. He gives a lot of carrots to Putin. Putin pockets those carrots. He reaches for a stick. Sometimes he might use it a little bit. He'll always threaten it. But at the end of the day, I think he feels he's going to get more with carrots than with these sticks. But, I think at some point this string will have run its course in terms of carrots and sticks, and he's going to have to really whack him over the head with something. And that might be what happens after Budapest. But this is just...
Or he just withdraws from the whole thing and just says you can sort it out amongst yourselves, and if Europe wants to help you out, then over to them.
Well, it could very well be that, and he's always left the door open for that, and we'll just have to see if that's the result. But I think after the Gaza experience, he feels he can do this, and I think I don't think he feels ready yet to step away from this.
But there's a key difference. There's a key difference with Gaza, isn't there? That in Gaza, both sides were sort of looking for a way out, even if they weren't publicly saying that. Whereas here, Russia and Ukraine, neither are prepared to make any concessions territorially, and so there's really no basis for a deal on those grounds.
That's an excellent point, and this is where Putin is going to have to feel the pressure from Trump. This is where Trump's tactics are going to have to change so that, like in Gaza, Trump put a lot of pressure on Netanyahu, a lot of pressure. And I think he's going to have to use that playbook with Putin. He's going to have to really make it hurt. And these Tomahawks can be a pretty good tool to bring some hurt to Putin.
Right. Well, is there anything that Zelensky could say in the next hour that could put the ball back in his court? Because, as we've been discussing, the expectations are very low for this. So is there anything that Zelensky can do to sort of turn the tables a bit?
Well, I think Zelensky can, in a polite manner, can make the case that don't be fooled. You're on the hook now for the Budapest summit. Understand how Budapest fits in with us. That was the site of a humiliation a number of years ago with that Budapest memorandum. This is going to be a very anxious moment for us. And please keep on the table and live the Tomahawk transfer, and help us get ready for that during this pause. Help us make sure that if we get them, that the U.S. is ready to provide them along with the launchers that you've got to have to launch those missiles. And that can be a bit of an issue because the launchers for a land-based missile we have some, but I'm not sure how many we have. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done that I hope they will do during the pause. Maybe Zelensky can get Trump oriented in that direction.
And of course, Putin doesn't necessarily want a bilateral meeting with Zelensky. I mean, Zelensky has said, in the past that he's up for that. And Trump has sort of floated this idea that the two of them could meet and, maybe he'll be some kind of go-between. Is that something that Zelensky could sort of push on that Trump might want to hear?
Well, I think Trump would like to hear that from Zelensky. Zelensky could say, look, I'm still on board a bilateral or trilateral meeting with Putin. I'm all about peace. If we can just get Putin to the table, whatever, Mr. Trump, you want to do, I'm with you. I've seen your good work in Gaza, so I know you can do it. And so I think saying that kind of thing is what Trump will want to hear.
And it does sound as if Putin gave Trump what he wanted to hear in the shape of trade, and sort of dangling things in front of him, future deals, once the war's over. Is there anything that Zelensky can say on those terms to appeal to Trump, the businessman, the deal maker?
Well, I think he can also dangle some things as well. I'm not sure what will happen with a peace agreement in terms of where the rare earths will be located in Ukraine or in Russia, depending on where they draw the line. I mean, but there's other things. One thing actually is drone technology. Ukraine knows more about the use of drones on the battlefield than the United States does, and this is something that I think that Zelensky could say to Trump. We will help you deal with what is a vulnerability that the West really has right now. So that's one thing he could dangle.
Right, I think we're seeing a car pull up at the entrance to the White House. I think that maybe Donald Trump has come to the door, so he is preparing to welcome Volodymyr Zelensky. We're seeing Volodymyr Zelensky getting out of the car now, greeting Donald Trump. I can't actually see, the screen is too small, whether he's wearing some kind of... He is wearing some kind of jacket, I think. I'm not sure that there's a tie around his neck, but Donald Trump has given him a pat on the back, looking sort of serious. Another pat on the back, smiles at each other. I mean, that is looking more positive than perhaps one might have expected. They've turned to go inside, pose for the cameras. So the body language was not terrible on that. Just a few final thoughts from you before we go into that meeting and hopefully hear some comments from both of them later in the programme. Jim Townsend, former Assistant Secretary of Defence for NATO, just tell us where Europe stands in all of this, because we're watching that White House door. They've just gone in there. These discussions are being, the future of this war in Europe is being debated in the White House. Is Europe irrelevant?
Europe is not irrelevant. I know it might look like that because we've seen European leaders, including Keir Starmer, in the room with Zelensky and Trump. So we know that Europe can get into the room. This is a Zelensky meeting. So Europe doesn't necessarily have to be there, but Europe will be there in spirit because Europe is the one that's funneling the weapons to Ukraine. It'll be U.S. Assistance, whether it's Patriot missiles or it's Tomahawk, but that will be going via the NATO allies who will be using their money to purchase them. So this is something that makes Europe a key player, and as well as any kind of peace agreement where there might need to be security guarantees, assistance in terms of reconstructing Ukraine. Europe is very much a player, and it's going to be very anxious watching what comes out of this meeting as well.
Jim Townsend, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Former Assistant Secretary of Defence for NATO there with that analysis.